It started as a faint whisper, barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator. "Evelyn?" The voice was hers, an eerie mimicry that sent a shiver down her spine. She lived alone, far from the bustle of the city, in a house that creaked and groaned with age. Evelyn brushed it off, attributing the sound to her imagination. It had been a long day at the veterinary clinic, filled with distressed animals and anxious owners. She poured herself a glass of wine and settled into the worn-out couch, hoping to unwind. The whispers, however, grew louder. "Evelyn, come here!" She froze, the glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the hardwood floor. Her heart raced as she scanned the room, her own voice echoing from the hallway. With cautious steps, she approached the dark corridor, each creak of the floorboards amplifying her fear. At the end of the hallway, the whispers persisted, calling her into the darkness of her bedroom. Trembling, she reached for the light switch, only to find it unresponsive. The bulbs flickered and died, plunging the room into an impenetrable blackness. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice quivering. Silence. Then, from the depths of the darkness, her own voice answered, "Come closer." She backed away, nearly tripping over her own feet, and fled to the living room. She locked the door behind her, hoping to find solace in the dim glow of the television. Her phone rang, startling her. The caller ID showed her mother's number. With a sigh of relief, she answered. "Mom, Evelyn, come here." Her own voice, distorted and sinister, spoke through the phone. She dropped it, panic gripping her. This wasn't possible. She needed help. She needed to get out. Evelyn grabbed her keys and bolted for the front door. As she reached it, a chilling realization hit her. The whispers had stopped. The house was deathly silent. Outside, the night was calm, the full moon casting an eerie glow over the fields. She jumped into her car, hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. The engine roared to life, and she sped down the gravel road, desperate to distance herself from whatever malevolent force haunted her home. She drove aimlessly, her mind racing. Who could she turn to? The nearest neighbor was miles away, and she had no family nearby. Her thoughts were interrupted by a figure in the road ahead, illuminated by her headlights. She slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt. A man stood there, dressed in tattered clothes, his face obscured by shadow. Evelyn's heart pounded as she rolled down the window, keeping the engine running. "Do you need help?" she called out, her voice trembling. The man stepped closer, his features still hidden. He opened his mouth, and her own voice emerged. "Evelyn, come here!" Panic surged through her. She floored the gas pedal, swerving around the figure and speeding down the road. In her rearview mirror, she saw him standing there, watching her with an unnatural stillness. Evelyn didn't stop until she reached a small, run-down motel on the outskirts of town. She checked in, the disinterested clerk barely glancing at her as she paid for a room. Once inside, she locked the door and collapsed on the bed, exhaustion overtaking her fear. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of dark corridors and echoing whispers. She woke in the early hours of the morning, the first light of dawn creeping through the thin curtains. For a moment, she thought she was safe. A knock on the door shattered the illusion. She froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The knock came again, more insistent. She crept to the door and peered through the peephole. A familiar face stared back at her, her own. "Evelyn, come here!" She stumbled back, her mind reeling. The whispers had followed her. Desperation clawed at her as she realized there was no escape. The entities mimicking her voice were relentless, drawing closer with every passing moment. As the door rattled on its hinges, Evelyn sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was her own voice, whispering from the other side of the door. "Evelyn, come here."